So this is the last week before your finals. So this whole week is going to be dedicated to your final project. We've talked about it off and on for the last couple of weeks. I'm going to go through the deadlines. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what the podcast structures and forms are, as well as informational videos, show you a couple of examples, and then release you on your way to go ahead and start working on it. If you don't do anything else for me, at least do this, okay? If you do this final project, it's going to be worth it to you. And again, if you don't hit certain deadlines, you have to do the final. The final is going to be 100 questions. You'll only have 2 hours to do it. And it's going to shut down after that, okay?
Wait.
Yeah, you either do the project or you do the final.
See, you told me this when I came into class.
Okay, yes. So, you want to be hitting these deadlines, and again, remember you can work in groups and things like that. So let me just go over real quick the agenda or deadlines. So today, again, we're going to do the podcast and informational videos, and I'm going to go over the requirements. Tomorrow is a hard deadline. By 11:59, you have to do the proposal. Now, the proposal is only 3 questions. It's super simple. It's literally, are you doing it by yourself or with somebody else? If so, who are they? What's your topic? And what do you plan to do? A podcast or informational video? And kind of just tell me which one you're leaning towards, whether it's going to be like a micro video or if it's going to be an interview podcast. It's not set in stone. I just need to know. If I do not have that, anybody who does not turn that in by 11:59 is automatically going to take the exam. It's only 3 questions. Just get it done. Okay? 3 questions for the proposal. Okay? Now, you're going to have time in class Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Well, Friday you'll be at home to work on it. But you do have things due. So Wednesday, you need to do the works cited turn-in. I'm going to go over all the requirements for that. Then on Thursday, I need a full sentence outline. That is also due by 11:59. However, if these are a little bit later, as long as I get them by Saturday, you're good. The one that you need to be aware of is Saturday, May 22nd, no later than 11:59. I need your project. If I do not have it, the hour is going to disappear at midnight. If I don't have it, don't ask me to do anything else. It doesn't matter if you did it, you're doing the final. Okay, I've been really lenient up until now about things that are late. You cannot be late with this. Understood? I'd rather you turn in something than nothing. So let's say you turn in something that's not completely done. I can work with you on that aspect. But if I don't have anything, I'm assigning you the final. And I'm assigning finals on Sunday so that they're ready for the week. I'm not making any changes after that. Understood? And remember that the final, if you don't do the final project, you're going to take 100 questions, comprehensive semester, final semester exam. So comprehensive means from the minute we started last year to now, everything that I've covered will be on that test. Every single thing. Okay? So it's just easier to do the project. Yes? All right. So let's kind of get into it. And then this is the breakdown. So everything that you do this week is going to add up to 100 points. So the podcast and informational video podcast, that's on automatic 10 points. The works cited is 15 points. The full sentence outline is 25 points. And the podcast or informational video itself is 50 points. And so all week I'll add them up, right? And then that's the grade you'll get. Make sense? Simple? Okay. So real fast, I do want to go over the assignments with you before we go over the overview. So again, for the podcast proposal, I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's just this link right here. Again, this is a hard deadline. And when I say it's 3 questions, I mean it's 3 questions. It's super simple. Will your final project be an individual endeavor, or will it be a group venture? If you're working with a group, please list the names. Simple. Yes?
I have a question.
What's up?
Do they have to be like they're in school?
No.
Not in school. I mean, they're like in the school system, but they don't go.
Yeah. Anybody can be your partner. Okay? Or you can have multiple partners. So what category or topic will your podcast informational video cover? Is it, so example, conspiracy theory, Bermuda Triangle, mystery, that type of thing, okay? And then the third question, and I do see some grammar issues in here, I will fix them. Will you or your group be creating a podcast or informational video? Please provide the type and structure. And I'm gonna go over the types and structures today. That's all you have to do. And again, this is not set in stone. You can change it later if you need to. All right, any questions on that? Pretty simple. That is due by tomorrow at 11:59, but you can turn it in earlier to make sure you get it done. So that's the first assignment. The second assignment is a final research work cited. This should be super easy because you had all that information in the source notes. So when you're good, what you're gonna do is you're gonna get with your group and you're gonna determine what are we gonna talk about. Let's say it's this table here, right? You're all gonna do like a joint venture. We're gonna go with Alexia's choice, and this is the source notes she had. You have to find 2 additional sources after that, but you just copy and paste them into here. Okay, I did provide a walkthrough that is under the examples. So, and I'm gonna post it here as well. And then you just turn that in by 11:59. Any questions on that? By now you should know what a works cited is and everything should be easy peasy with that. All right, then you have your video outline. I provide a template guide. That does not mean that you're gonna print this out and turn it in. You're going to create this in Word, and I provide a video for that as well, okay? And I provide an example. So you'll just click through it and choose which one you had. So let's say you're doing a interview one, this is the one that you would follow. So it will be in full sentences, okay? So when it says introduction to podcast, you would say, welcome everyone to such and such podcast. And I have examples for you, all right? Sound simple so far? I promise it's simple, especially since you're working in a group. So divide and conquer is what I would say to that. And then your final assignment is the final research podcast. Now, you're not going to turn it in on this one. I'm going to show you where you're going to turn it in. But here are the requirements. Okay, it's due Saturday, May 22nd by 11:59. The requirements are, you must match the topic you selected in your proposal unless you come and tell me you're changing it. Okay, so let's say you guys chose conspiracy theory, the Men in Black, but then you realize, no, I want to do Jack the Ripper instead, the mystery, right? You and your group need to come tell me. All right. You must meet the time requirements for a podcast. It's a minimum of 5 minutes. Informational video, a minimum of 2. Podcast can be audio files like those that appear in the Apple Podcast or Stitcher, video files like those available on YouTube and Amazon, and music can be used for the intros and outros, but cannot be used during the actual podcast because I want to be able to hear you. All right. Informational videos can be visual with text only. Music can be used, but cannot be distracting. Visual with audio, music can be used also, but not distracting. And then visual with text and audio. And I'll show you what some of those look like. There is a rubric. You need to meet the criteria for that. There are no late submissions. And if you are late, you automatically take the comprehensive exam. So what you're going to do is whenever you create your file, you're going to upload it to the research media album that's on the main page. And I do have a video showing you how to do that. Now, if your video is too big, you need to contact me and let me know, and I'll just probably have you email it to me, okay? Because there is a limit on Schoology to what you can upload. Here's the rubric, super simple breakdown. And then you get 2 free points. So what happens is, I'm going to go through the rubric and see, did they meet everything? So let's say you earn 22 points. I'm going to times that by 2 and add 2 points, and then it gives you 46 total points out of 50. Because remember, everything's adding up to 100 points. Questions? Okay. Now, when you upload your file, you're going to upload it right here to the podcast informational video final projects. Okay, and I am going to have you guys check to make sure that you can add media because I have to hit a certain button, but it's kind of hard to tell when the button is selected, okay? So, any questions so far? All right, so now that we've gone over everything that's required of you, let me do a quick overview of actual podcast formats and informational video formats. So here's the podcast overview. When it pops up, it is in Nearpod, but I have also attached it as a PDF file, and then all the examples are down here. And there is one I'm going to show you because I need to guilt trip you into doing my work. So I will show that one to you. So first things first. What's the difference between podcasts and informational videos? Well, podcast is a program made available in digital download format over the internet. A lot of times this is just audio, but you can also have it video. And that's the way mine and Coach Johnson's were video. An informational video is just a shareable video that's meant to instruct or educate you on something, okay? So the podcast formats, the first one is a solo monologue podcast. Obviously, this is where you do it by yourself, right? I did one and I enjoyed it. It's super quick. And the good thing is you know exactly what you're doing, so you don't have to worry about anybody else. But it is a lot of talking because remember, you have to do at least 5 minutes, okay? But if you're talking about something that you're truly interested in, I talked about anime and I talked for like 14 minutes, okay? So, but you just follow that structure. The structure is you would have an introduction of the podcast, then you introduce the host, you explain your topic, then you do point 1 with a segue. A segue is a transition, okay? Then point 2 with the segue, point 3 with the segue, a summary of everything you talked about, and an outro, okay? Think about all the podcasts that you have listened to before. That's kind of how it could be set up. Then you can have the conversational co-host one, where you can have one other person or you can have several people. I don't know if you guys remember, but at the beginning of the year, I showed you a frank and honest discussion with teachers, and there was 4 of us, and we talked, right? And it ended up being really long because there was 4 of us literally talking to each other over certain just topics. So that can be really helpful because you have somebody to bounce ideas off of, right? It's easier to talk to somebody and have that conversation. And it makes people tend to feel more as a group. But you do have to make sure that you're on the same page, right? So it doesn't help if you're talking about the Bermuda Triangle to somebody and that person has no idea what you're talking about, right? You can't really do a conversation that way. So you need to make sure you're on the same page. That structure is very similar to the other one. You literally will introduce the podcast, but now you're going to introduce the host. You're going to give an explanation of the topic, which is background information. And then you're going to have your points and segues, a summary, and an outro. These are very minimal because on the outlines itself, I provide you questions that you need to have answered, okay? So even though it just says that's point 1, you might be like, Ms. Garcia, what's a point 1 in a segue? You would look at the actual outline and I summarize it for you and tell you what you need. Okay, so everything that you need is here. Okay, then we have an interview podcast. This sometimes can get confused for a co-host. The difference is one person is asking the questions and the other one is answering. So Coach Johnson and I did one where I interviewed him and he talked about Batman. Okay, so even though I made some comments in there, most of the podcast was him answering the questions. Okay, and so that can be easier, especially if you're the type of person that might be a little nervous about being in the podcast, but you need a part, be an interviewer. And you can actually interview more than one person, right? When I did the one with the frank and honest discussion, in reality, that was a mix between a co-host and an interviewer. I asked questions to my compadres and they answered, okay? And then I would kind of offer my own insight. So that structure is literally an introduction to the podcast, introduction to the host guest, and then guest questions was you ask the host interviews the guest with specific questions. I'm asking for at least 3 questions at minimum, okay? Because remember, your podcast has to be a minimum of 5 minutes. And then an outro. Remember that an outro is basically just you saying like, hey, this is so-and-so from such and such podcast again, I'm out, right? Like, see you next time, all right? Then you have the non-fictional storytelling podcast. This one can either be done solo or with somebody else. Me and Coach Johnson did it together. He told a story and basically I acted as somebody, I asked questions that I felt the audience might ask, right? So it kind of helps push the narrative along, right? And it also helps kind of keep them focused. This one, you have an introduction to the podcast, you introduce the topic and the story, it needs to have a beginning, middle, and end. Don't leave your people, your listeners hanging. It needs to have an ending. Then you provide a summary, like a recap of it, and the moral of the story. Why should I care about this story? And then an outro. So Coach Johnson's was about decisions and how a decision he made in high school affected him throughout the rest of his life. And he didn't think that big of a deal, okay? So take a listen to that if you like it. The other thing is to create your own format. So like I said, I've done one where it was a mix of host and co-host. So you can actually mix some of the elements up, but if you're doing that, you need to let me know that you plan to mix them, okay? It mostly works with the co-host interview storytelling one. Any questions on podcasts?
Why did you tell us about the fiction one if all of our stories are supposed to be like true-ish?
Yeah, so that's a nonfiction one.
Oh, I thought you said fiction.
Nonfiction. Nonfiction storytelling.
I thought you said fiction.
No, sir. So the video formats. The first one you have is a micro video, and I'm going to show you my micro video that I created. These are harder than you think because they have to fit everything in. They're normally less than a minute long to 2 minutes long. Okay. Now I do have a minimum of 2 minutes. The one I created was a little bit less. I should have drawn it out a little bit more. Okay. But it sounds simple and you're like, oh, less than 2 minutes, I can do that. But that's a lot of information to pack in because you have to pack in all this information. You have to have an emotional pull, which grabs the audience's attention. A prime, you prepare the viewer with background. Content, which is where you basically give the information. And then the reflection, which is a recap of the information that was covered. And then an emotional push. You try to kind of guilt them, pull them in, okay? That's a lot to do in a little bit of time. If you need more time than that, I would suggest you go with like a tutorial video, right? You're teaching them something or how to do something. So just because it's a tutorial doesn't mean, oh, I have to teach them a math problem. You can actually give them a tutorial over a topic, right? It's like a review. So, but to be able to do that, you need to have a good understanding of your topic. I cannot teach you if I don't understand it. Make sense? Okay, those are normally 2 to 10 minutes long. And that format is this: an explanation of the information going to be provided, an outline where I kind of go through the steps of the process, a walkthrough, which I break down every step. Then I recap it and I do a conclusion. You guys should be used to these by now because I do a ton of them. All year long, I have provided tutorial videos on how to do a Word document, how to do this, how to do that. So you should know that one pretty easy, okay? Then we have what's called screencasts. And basically that's just a screen recording. I have done many of these where all you do is you hear my voice, right? Normally with a tutorial, you can see the person. Even if you're just recording the screen, you can see the person. With a screencast, you're just seeing my screen. And I've done many of these, right? Where I've walked you through something and all you see is my screen and hear my voice. That's a screencast. They tend to be quick and short, but again, they have a format that you have to follow. And that's an introduction where you provide narrator identification information. Who are you? You provide an overview. You provide the content, then you focus it. Because a lot of times when you're doing screencasts, you're going over a certain process or you're telling them a big idea and then you want to focus it in. What's the most important stuff to remember? And then you have a conclusion, which is a short recap. Then this one you should definitely be familiar with because I do these every day. This is a lecture presentation video. I'm doing it right now. I'm providing a presentation and I'm recording it for later reference. These are really good when people aren't going to be in front of you or when you're trying to do both, okay? So it's pretty simple. You basically just record yourself. A lot of times you can use a PowerPoint with it. I'm going to show you that you can use PowerPoint with a lot of these. And so my example for this one is today's lecture. Okay, I'm recording it and I'm going to post it like I do every day. These are really good, but again, they have to have a certain structure. I have to have a hook. I have to grab their attention. Most of the time, I'm just come in and I say hello, and I give you a brief overview, right? This is what we're going to be doing today, guys, blah, 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 right? Then I chunk up the information, right? I make it to where I'm providing information in chunks so that it doesn't overwhelm you all at once. So you'll follow this conclusion. All right, any questions? Okay, so now that you kind of have a brief overview, and this is obviously going to be up there for later review, you can go out and share what you learned, and you can show me by creating the videos. Now, here are examples. So Coach Johnson and I did several of them. I'm not going to show them all to you. You can go look at them if you choose to. But so this is a recorded video where it's me and Coach Johnson. You can see us. But there is a way when I recorded it, I export it as just an audio file, and I can just have the audio file. So this one is a solo one that I did where I talk about anime and why it's misunderstood, right? So you can go listen to that one if you want to. This one is the co-host conversational one. We talked about the evolution/de-evolution of rap. And so we had a conversation, and because it was the two of us talking about something that we like, it became a longer video. And again, there's the audio file if you need. Here's the interview podcast where I interviewed Coach Johnson on Batman because he is kind of a Batman fanboy. So yes, so you can talk about that, okay? Then there's the nonfiction storytelling podcast where he talks about a decision he made as a teenager that affected his life up until today.
I do basketball.
Well, it has to do a little bit with basketball and him leaving school early. Okay, there's the audio files. So here is the video files. Now, two of them are, well, there's three of them up. There's the micro video, which I'm going to show to you. There's a tutorial on how to set up an MLA Word document and works cited that you are going to be responsible for this week. And then how to turn in your final project. And the lecture is going to go underneath it. The one I want to show you is this one. This is my micro video, and it's called Miss Garcia's Epic Guilt Trip.
No, I'm not.
This music sounds like
Just like 2012 Tumblr.
Imagine.
No. You know those horror games of Roblox? No, it's
Oh my God. Miss Garcia, you did not have to get the PowerPoint presentation about your depression. Try.
It's so sad. Who hurt you, Miss Garcia?
Y'all.
Please
She's a-
pass my class. So I
She's
know
in
the
her
students
cranium right now. She's like, I just became an engineer.
So that is a micro video. Okay. It was only 1 minute and 11 seconds. I could have, like I said, I could have drawn it out, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what it is. So that's pretty much what I'm using. I created that in PowerPoint. Okay,
Wow.
and I just did a screen recording with music behind it. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be here all week, obviously, to help you. You have all week to do it. Just make sure you hit those deadlines, guys. It's really, really important. I don't want you to have to take my final because it will suck, I promise, because I'm making it suck on purpose. All right, any questions? All right, so you guys are free to discuss what you're gonna do. I would actually try to get that proposal in as soon as possible so that you don't have to worry about it tomorrow. All right?
Can I be mine?